profession, but not the same thing. I was successful in my endeavor though, so I felt like all of a sudden I had any like swag as I was walking. Wow. Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to share it because I don't think that's it.
We make USAA insurance for renters who make the most of their space and money. That's why we make it easy to cover the stuff you love for as little as 33 cents a day. USAA, what you're made of, we're made for. USAA.
You can write it, or a specific tool. Write down how often you need to purchase each item. So even if you go to, yes, thank you, that's a good question. Like if you ever don't understand the journal, now for the example, for the journal yesterday, the journal question was, what was some of the goals you had when you were 5, you were 15 now, and when you're 45? Only one of you actually wrote all those ages. Some of you just wrote down a journal thing. Read the whole complete question or it's wrong. Okay, like I'm glad you're doing it, but you need to make sure that you actually answer all the different parts to it. For the clubs though today, once you go, you do need to write down what you learned that day, which shouldn't be long. It's like a 1 sentence thing. Okay, and then, all right, so let's quickly go with the clubs. Rubens.
Similar for me in that, you know, I love video games, and my husband specifically, all of my friends play Overwatch. And so then when our friend connected us on via email, I was like, I immediately told my husband, I'm like, guess who reached out to me? Sombra.
Sombra.
Sombra. Because I would always see you, like, hear your voice, and it was like really, really cool to be able to connect with you. So we already, you know, knew about each other in our own individual ways. So I just love how, like, awesome the little community is out here of Latino. Like, everyone just kind of connects. Like, we all know each other. It's funny.
Well, slowly, you know, like because of the Latino kind of events that happened before COVID, I was like, oh, cool. I was able to, like, know who Gardiel is and all this stuff because I wasn't aware of, or I've been watching their videos, but hadn't met them in person. And I think that, like, New York, LA, Miami are separate, even if we watch each other's work, do you know?
Yes.
But I also think that it was just crazy because, like, you're such a big personality on screen. And then when I met you, you're, like, tiny. Like, I hugged you, and I'm like, you were petite. But you, like, as Abuela and as these characters, we can't tell, you know, it's just, like, not fat, just, you seem like you're tall. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's also, I feel like you're similar to me, though, because I view you también like this petite, but you have, like, this strong, commanding voice, which is obviously why you have a successful voice acting career. And honestly, I'm glad I was given this voice. I worry that because of my stature, I wouldn't have been taken as seriously as a woman. I hate to say it, but it's just...
Yeah.
And obviously, it's tied to personality también, so I just kind of, you know, put my foot down, and I'm very... I don't like to let people walk all over me, you know what I mean?
It's tied to personality también. That brings me to Hyphenated, which I want to talk about because it's so badass. I've listened to a couple episodes. I'm very excited for the next ones. You started a podcast with Joanna Hausman called Hyphenated.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it. I'm really excited for the world to hear this, especially hyphenated people like us, because I think everybody's hyphenated nowadays.
Yeah, because you were born in Colombia, no?
Born and raised in Colombia, yeah.
Yeah, so she was born in Venezuela, and then she kind of went back and forth. It's interesting, her trajectory, because she went to the States, and then she went back to Venezuela for high school, and then back to the States. Whereas me, I was born and raised in Miami, but the joke amongst all of my fellow Miamians is that Miami's, like, not really part of the U.S. It's its own little country in Florida, where people predominantly speak Spanish. So I see someone here asking what exactly is hyphenated in this context. So I've always loved the term living in the hyphen. So, like, Cuban hyphen American. For you, it's Colombian hyphen American.
Well, my invented term was Hispanglo hyphen Saxon.
Yes.
Because I'm Hispanic and Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah.
So it's very, we just wanted to have a podcast where we can talk about our experiences living in this hyphen, which, again, I knew about Joanna because of Flama back in the day. And I was at Pero Like, and then I went on to Me Too. And then the first time I ever met Joanna was at a VidCon. And we had just this mutual love and admiration for one another. And I just think she's brilliant, and she has an excellent sense of humor. And we got along super well, but we've never been able to really work together because she lives in New York. Yeah. So I would only see her every now and then out here if it was some kind of event. You know, those, like, YouTube Latino events and stuff like that. So it was just perfect timing. She approached me to do the podcast with her for Pitaya, which is the company that's producing it.
Guys, pitaya is a fruit in Latin America, and I love that that's the name of the company.
Yeah, so it's been incredible because, again, her videos and my videos have had that same theme throughout, which is, again, living in the hyphen.
Yeah.
A lot of my videos are Spanglish, English, Spanish. One character mainly speaks all Spanish, while the other one is like the nieta, the granddaughter who barely knows Spanish. And it's everything in between.
Where did the inception happen? Did you go, Joa, I want to do this with you? Did Pitada say, you two seem like you'd be awesome at this? Like, what was the that first seed? Because you guys are really, some podcasts I find like take a while to rev up, and you guys jump in immediately. And from second one, I want to know what's next, you know, and it's really good. And you have this ping pong that works so well.
I'm so glad.
Yes.
I mean, mira, my whole, like, since I started this, right, I'm like, should I have a like, I would have people write me and ask me when I'm going to have a podcast. But the thought of it overwhelmed me because I do have ADHD. So does Joanna. But I was diagnosed last year.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Mine is undiagnosed, but I'm really sure I have ADHD.
I mean, how you might, yeah. Women, it's a problem, especially with women. We tend to get diagnosed much later in life, and it's really unfair. But Joanna was diagnosed when she was a kid, so she kind of has more of a grasp on it, more of a control.
Yeah.
But that's why I didn't want to have a podcast for the longest time. I thought it would be cool, but I cannot sit there and edit myself in audio format. I love video editing. I cannot do audio. It's even difficult for me to listen to other podcasts because of my ADHD. So I'm like, how am I going to do this? This was perfect because she approached me because the people at Pitaya approached her. And they're like, who would your ideal co-host be? She thought about me. Bless her heart.
That's beautiful.
Joanna's always like uplifting other creators, especially other women in the industry.
Absolutely.
It's really nice that she brought me on board, and we get along super well. So it's been really fun. A new one was just released today where we talk about beauty standards in Latin American culture.
Yeah. Which is crazy because we all deal with it. And I think that until we're like thrown into another culture, we go, oh my God, like I grew up thinking that was normal and it's not, you know, or, and it's funny. We think that Latinos are very vain, but like, dude, I had a Korean roommate. She's like, dude, Koreans are super vain. And then like, I know a Russian girl. She's like, are you kidding? Russians are mad vain. So I think that we all have the same problems all over the world. They're kind of tackled differently, you know?
Every culture has their own beauty standards and what they deem is beautiful. And, you know, it was really, I loved this one specifically because I have a lot of strong feelings about beauty standards especially growing up in Miami.
Yeah.
It's a city that really idolizes the type of women you see in a Pitbull music video, which again, they're beautiful. I agree. But there's the culture of you have to have a big butt and big old boobies and a tiny waist,
and
like
fake butt and fake boobs.
Yeah, like you have. It's what I call it is that I know that the world in general has this obsession with thinness, but in Miami and I think most of Latin American and Caribbean culture, I am the wrong kind of skinny. Meaning I am just a boyish, what they call a boyish, you know, ruler shape. I don't have wide hips. I don't have big boobs. I don't have a big butt. And I'm very short. I'm like 5'1". And I would constantly get ridiculed in my own hometown. Like, oh, I'm not really Cuban because I don't have a big butt. And even in the comments online, they're like, this girl doesn't eat her croquetas.
Yeah.
You know, and then when I go back to my hometown of Miami, because I live in LA now, without fail, at least 1 to 3 times, either a fan will stop me and comment on my weight in a negative way, or I'll bump into like a friend of a friend's mom or something. And I had an anxiety attack at a Cuban restaurant because a fan stopped me while I was eating, and I had a really rough week. That week I was in the hospital twice because I have Crohn's disease. For those who don't know, I have Crohn's disease. And
can you explain a little bit of what Crohn's is and what you deal with? Yeah.
Yes. So Crohn's disease is an autoimmune disease of the entire digestive tract. It can be anything from the mouth all the way to your booty. But it specifically attacks the intestines more so than anything.
Yeah.
And so I've had Crohn's now for 6 years. And I've always had like a fast metabolism. Like I've always been what I call a skinny little shit. But imagínate then with Crohn's disease, and then you're trying to find the right diet to go into remission. So all that trial and error, I would like dip in weight, go up and down, and I'll get a flat butt, and then I'll try to like go back to working out and try to gain like a little bit of a booty. And this was during a time where I was really not feeling well. I had gone to the hospital twice. I was in Miami for work. And so that 2 weeks that I was in Miami, I had multiple people tell me that I needed to eat more. And they were like really disgusted by how I looked. Even
also,
though
it's like, what gives people the right to tell you how they think you should? Yeah, a few comments on Insta for me have been like, oh, you should eat a sandwich or whatever. And it's like,
oh, I'm sure. I'm like,
know,
first of all, why is it a sandwich? That's exactly what we talked about on the podcast. I'm like, can you at least get creative with the meal you want to shove?
Yeah.
Like a sandwich is not going to really give me a butt overnight, but thank you. So I know you would understand también because, coño, like just because we're a certain body type doesn't mean we're any less Colombian. Doesn't mean we don't freaking eat.
Dude, I bought, in New York, I have a couple of pair of hoops, like big ones. I have a bra that actually they bought for a TV show to put on me, and it adds a few sizes, but I kept it for my Latino audition so I can put them up here and they look big. I have a specific jeans that I put up, and then I do the high ponytail with a little bit of the hair like this, so I can be all New Yorkican, because I would go into auditions like this, and then they're like, not only am I blanquita, but I don't have boobs. So I kind of have this outfit for Latino auditions that are very stereotypical, and now I don't use them because it's dumb. But there was a time when I thought I had to, do this.
No, I get you, I get you. When I used to audition in Miami, can you imagine Miami, the market in Miami? I would do the same crap. I would like contour my breasts here with like bronzer and like push them up. I'm a 32A. There's only so much.
There's only so much you can do. I know you have a push-up bra. It smells like tiny little freaking avocados up there.
No, es que una ridiculez. I'm like, why? Like, why does the industry expect us all to look like Sofia Vergara?
I know.
So that's, if anybody's interested, that's what our topic of conversation is about.
Awesome.
And we go into multiple, it's not just about weight. We go into like the idolization in Latino culture about whiteness and you have to have blue eyes. We go into all of that. So
yeah, well, that's amazing, man. Because more and more we just have to expose these topics so that other people don't feel alone. Because so many people are feeling the same thing, but they don't know that people are feeling it. So it's almost like sharing it so that we know it's a thing.
Claro, yeah.
Let's talk about Victor and Valentino. I believe that Diego Molano, who's the creator of that show, just loved your work and reached out and said, yo, I think he'd be great for Lupe. Like, how did that go down? And did you know who he was? Like, were you like flabbergasted that he knew about you and wanted you to do this? It wasn't just like, oh, well, I'm sending another 75,000 audition, which we do. But he really loved your work, and he didn't mind that you weren't Mexican, which that show is very Mexican-centric.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, since I was in my early 20s, I knew that I really wanted to be an animation voice actor specifically. And now, claro, one of my goals is to be in a video game someday, but animation was always my thing.
But you will.
Thank you, Mija. One day. But yeah, like, when I moved out here, I started taking voice acting classes, I would always be, when I would go to like the Comic Cons and stuff, I would always go to those panels with all the voice actors that everybody knows and loves, like Rob Paulson, and Tara Strong and all these people. And what's interesting is that, and I'm sure you've been told this, even by teachers and other voice actors in the industry, would always say, don't bet on booking animation. It's near impossible. You need to stick to commercial. And I was like, okay, all right. So claro, I did. I started with commercial. classes, and then you moved on to animation, and then so what happened was over like the last, like before I booked Victor Valentino, I had already known about Diego because we have a mutual friend from Miami that went to art school with him. And
what's his name?
His name is Kiki Valdez. He's the one in charge of the Abuela Mami boxes. It's like a subscription box.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it.
It has like all the little cositas from Miami. And so he told me about Diego. He's like, yeah, you know. And then Diego and I became friends on Instagram. And I remember having some conversations with him. And he was like, yeah, I love your videos. Because Diego he was born and raised in Miami. He has a Cuban mom. And then his other half is Mexican Colombian. Mm-hmm. And so that's why he liked my videos, claro, because he relates to the Cuban stuff. He would say that his mom Marucci reminds him of his mom.
Oh my God. Dude, oh God, the names of your characters are so good. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm very specific and picky about names of my characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got along super well, but I remember there was a point that I thought there's no way I'm going to ever book a role on his show, because there came a point where he's like, I'm so sorry, like I just don't think there's any roles for you because they're all Mexican roles. And I understand that. I'm sure you feel the same way when you have to audition for a culture that's not yours, and then you feel weird. And it's tough because, again, there's not that many of us, tampoco.
I know.
Claro. So I understood. I was actually appreciative of how authentic he was being. It was a bummer for me because I'm like, oh, this is my chance to finally book something because I know how hard it is. Yeah. And then one random day, he tells me, I need you to record your voice immediately for Lupe. And he created, not that Lupe is not known in the universe as a Cuban.
But she sounds different.
But the accent, yeah. So he's like, I want her to be kind of like this bully friend who is like a Tony Montana kind of thing. And so he did, he vouched for me because, claro, you know how it is. The people up top at Cartoon Network are like, oh, but she has no credits. Like, how about we give it to someone else that has more blah, blah, blah. But no, he convinced them and I got it.
Someone with no credits. You have created your empire. Your YouTube channel is huge and your Instagram is huge. Like, this is so ridiculous that they want somebody with more credits.
That's how it is.
Oh, it angers me, man.
I was recently turned down by 2 major talent agencies because they said I wasn't ready across the board. And I understand that, like, I'm extremely humble, but also like really hard on myself. So I'm like, oh, of course, like I'm not ready. But then it's heartbreaking when you see like purely Anglo, like white women who have less credits, actually no credits, and less followers get picked up by the same major agencies just because this year they decided to do like front-facing comedy. There's like Deadline articles, Variety articles on these women. So then I'm like, okay, so I'm not ready, but they're ready. And I know it's because they have an issue with me and my content. It's been a recurring thing in the industry for me.
Why is it an issue? You're creating content that people like. You're not super divisive,
Spanglish, because it's not considered mainstream enough. It's because it's super cultural and ethnic and bilingual. That's 100% why, Gato. Like, even recently, I was very close to being staffed on my first TV show. And one of my mentor guardian angels found out why I did it, because it was between me and another girl. Like, I was super close.
Super close.
And I knew this show like the back of my hand. I had written, like, I was like so prepared. And it was because my my pilot script, which is my sample, was not mainstream enough.
You know what's confusing though is like now ethnic is the new in, and everyone wants somebody with an ethnic last name, and they're open to any ethnicity for all these roles. So I don't understand how they're not open to this, especially after Oscar's so white and after everything we just dealt with the Black Lives Matter movement this past year. Like, I don't understand how we're not a hot commodity these days.
I think it's one thing for them to say, oh, we cast a Latina versus, oh, but this is a Latina who does like bilingual foreign content. You know what I mean? Like they just kind of toss you in this like LatAm category. And it's like, no, I was born in Miami. I'm an American. This is American. Like this country was built on immigrants. So my writing and my stories and my characters are just as American as anything else. But a lot of these, it's still these big agencies, these people up top, they're still upholding the white supremacy of in the industry. And and even though, again, I'm a white Latina, doesn't matter.
No, it's bullshit. It's like when it behooves them, it works, and when it doesn't, it doesn't. Like it's when they decide that it needs to be a little ethnic, we'll sprinkle it here, but then when it's too much, then no, you know.
I feel like because I'm a white Latina and I have that privilege, if I was writing stuff that was very mainstream, then they'd be like, "Oh yeah, look, we got our Latina." But we picked her because it's mainstream shit and not stuff that we don't understand. Even though I'm a white Latina, but my content and my stories and all the things that I do are super ethnic. That's already.
Well, that's, the day that you and Joanna are in power of your own, network, then that's when that's just going to be getting produced the way that, you want it to.
Yeah. And Joanna and I talk about this a lot. There is a lot of responsibility being white Latinas to then lift up other, people of color. And that is something that I'm just dying to do. You have no idea.
Yeah. You know what's funny though? Being a white Latina on camera though, I don't think has helped me booking roles. They always want somebody browner. So that's the other side of it. Do you know what I'm saying?
You're very much stuck in the middle, because I completely understand. And you and I are like nerdy. We're like in this, you know what I mean? We're like, I can't even explain it, but we are not what Hollywood envisions as Latinas either.
Right, exactly.
So it's tough, because then what the hell are we? What do we do? And I know that.
Well, back to hyphenated, that's it. It's like,
Yeah. And that's the same issue that a lot of my Latino friends who are of Asian descent or of African descent or Afro-Latinos, they also feel like they don't belong. It's like pick one or the other. Like, are you? You are Latina, but you're black though. And it's just like,
dude, there are black Latinos. I have a lot of Asian Latino friends, dude. They're just not actors, but there are so many.
There's Japanese. So many.
Sao Paulo has the biggest Japanese population outside of Japan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Believe it.
There's so many Japanese Brazilians. There are Chinese Venezuelans, there are Korean Chileans, there are you know what I mean? In Colombia, we had a ton of Japanese and Chinese people. So I don't know. But wait, back to Lupe though, because we were talking about this. So he fought for you, which I love Diego for this, because he's and he also fought for Total Fit to be a character. What's his name?
Frankie Quiñones.
Frankie Quiñones to be in the show, because he, for his specific character. And that's what I love about Diego. He's like, nah, man, these are legit Latinos that are good at what they do. That's why we want to work with them.
Yes. And it's interesting because I'm on another animated series. I am.
Oh my God, congrats.
It hasn't, I got cast right when the pandemic started, so that's why it's delayed. It hasn't released yet.
Okay.
But it's for HBO Max, and it's with Warner Brothers. And when I only got to record with some of the other actors on that show 3 times max. Now it's like, as you know, it's like a sad showing up to the studio by yourself kind of thing.
Or it's a sad I record in my closet where I can barely move.
But I remember there was a black actress on the show, and it was her first time, and she's in Black Lady Sketch Show and stuff. Like, she's an up and coming black comedian. And I thought, you know what, this is really cool. That I think the reason why so many Latinos and people of color are getting their first shot at voice acting in animation and video games is because finally everyone's waking up and going, we're gonna have to cast authentically. Okay, who was voicing us all this time? It was white people. Yeah. Voicing Latinos, especially Latinos, Indian people. So now you see all these white voice actors kind of dipping out from their roles.
Yeah.
They're backing off. So that's why casting directors and people at these major, you know, Cartoon Network, Netflix, Amazon, every place is basically producing animated series, is now having to give new people a shot.
Yeah, yeah.
Because for the longest time it was super white.
Yeah, I auditioned for a Disney role recently, and the character was half Latina, half Black. And, you know, I sent in a self-tape, but I have a friend who works at Disney, and I said, hey, man, I don't know if this is cool, but I actually have, like, 3 or 4 Afro-Latina friends who don't have voiceover agents, and I think they should audition for this because this is wrong. And he goes, absolutely, let me give you casting director's email. And I wrote to her, and I said, with all due respect, like, I'm happy to audition for this, and I don't want to overstep any bounds because who am I to tell a fucking casting director at Disney something? And she goes, oh my God, I love this. Send them my way. So I sent all these Afro-Latinas her way. I don't think any of them booked it because they would have told me, I think. But just the fact that like they aren't doing a deeper search to find unrepresented Afro-Latinas for this role because they've understood that this representation is important. So I think that we're getting there, but that takes me back to the fact that they didn't book you as a writer on this show because your content is not mainstream enough. Like, if we're looking to authentically cast all these things, why in writing is it still like, no, it's not mainstream enough? Like, al revés, they should be saying, yes, that's what we need her voice in the room, you know?
I think we're slowly getting there. It depends who's up top. It really just depends who's in there fighting the good fight and approving these things. We need more Diegos. Yeah. We need more Diegos. I mean, I myself even produce my own animated show. And I know for
hopefully Joanna can give you some tips there.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Because I don't care. I know who I would want to bring in and voice, you being one of them. And I know for you it would probably be easier because you have credits, right? But I know people that have no animated credits who I'm like, I want them voicing in my animated series.
Absolutely.
If it ever were to come to fruition, because I need it to be authentic. Yeah. I don't care how much experience. That's what directing is. If they're good actors, but they might not have voice acting credits, that's all it is. That's what voice acting is.
It is.
It's acting. You're an actor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And I think that people don't have credits until they have credits, right? So it's this catch-22. Like,
I know.
The person who first cast me in my animation was taking a chance. Like, actually, Diego gave me that chance because I had done little animations that like never went anywhere. So then you can't see that on IMDb because they didn't make it. They didn't go out to get, shown in the world. So somebody like him going, oh, I like Sombra. Nobody gives a shit about video games in the animation world, but I know that she's talented. Let's bring her in for this. And then the casting director goes, oh, cool. Yeah, let's bring her back. You know, it's almost like you have to get that ball rolling, and that's why we have to vouch for our people, do you know?
Always. Yeah. Always. And it's interesting because, I'm sure you know her, Sissy Jones.
Yeah.
You just interviewed her. Mm-hmm. She is an excellent video game actress, and she coaches. So she coached me for a little bit last year. And we had like this emotional moment at one point because, she also has this like rich, deep voice and she obviously has like a bunch of credits. And I forgot what triggered this, but I think I felt bad. Like she told me about an audition that she thinks I should have gone to, but it was also an audition that she went to. Oh. And I was like, I don't want to overstep. And she got teary-eyed, which then made me teary-eyed because she's like, there is space for all of us. Like, it was like it was a female empowerment moment. Yeah. Of like, there is space for all of us, and we shouldn't be having to worry about this like competition thing. Yeah. Which plagues especially women in the industry.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what I love the most about voice acting, because I've noticed that there's more community, there's less ego, people really look out for each other. Mm-hmm. I've gotten so close to just a few people that I voiced, because again, I'm just on 2 shows, and now because of the pandemic, I don't see anybody, but we're always checking up on each other. Like Christina Melizia, who's like a freaking sweetheart. She's become a close friend of mine.
She's so talented.
Oh my God, I know. She's so talented. And zero ego.
Yeah.
You know, and even I remember one day D. Bradley Baker was gonna voice like a little part in Victor and Valentino, and he was in the green room with us.
Who?
D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah. Guys, he's our Hammond from Overwatch, like, and a million other voices.
He does everything.
Yeah.
And he was just so chill.
Yeah.
So cool to hang out with. Like a lot of voice actors, like freaking Rob Paulson. I have a photo with him because when I used to go to conventions in Miami, I was like cosplaying as Coraline Jones, and no one in Miami knew who I was.
Yeah.
But I met him and we talked for a while, and he's like, I hope to voice with you someday. And then we took like a photo hugging, and I still hold on to that.
Yeah.
Because it's little things like that that make you believe that it's possible.
Absolutely.
And look, I haven't voiced with him yet, but
and when these big talented, I call them big talented people, but they've been in the business longer, A, because they're older, and B, because they have so much more experience than we do. When they go, there's room for all of us, like Sissy, because Sissy's been a great mentor to me, and Jen Hale, who's amazing. I don't know if you've met her, but Jen Hale has a video game, the Guinness Book of World Records. Most voices, female voices in video games, like, right? And they just uplift us and go. She listened to my demo, my animation demo, and she's like, Caro, I've seen you on stage. I know what you can do. This demo doesn't cut it. Like, if you want something really good to open doors, you need to make a better demo. And I was like, oh my God, I re-recorded. I hired a different person. Like, you just know when you have to get it together. But instead of her going, yeah, that demo's fine, so that I fall flat on my face, she's going, no, dude, you need to up the game, because LA is a place where you're gonna, compete against a lot of people.
Christina did that for me. Militia.
That's amazing. She's incredible, man. She's just so talented too in the booth,
Oh my God, I know. And then she's just a sweetheart. She's like a joy to be around. So every time like I go in and record, even like the sound engineers, everyone's just so nice.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I really hope I keep booking.
What does Lupe sound like for the chat?
Oh, Lupe pretty much sounds like me. I love animation these days because now not every kid has to sound like a kid. You know what I mean? She's like 14.
But does she have a Cuban accent? Like,
you know what I tell you every day? It's my voice, but it's like a Tony Montana accent. I mean, let me see. Let me just read something randomly.
Danny had just put it in the chat about what you put it in there earlier, and I missed it. Danny, write it in again. Maisie Grove, get back here, you sinvergüenza.
Get back here, you sinvergüenza.
You sinvergüenza. Is she kind of like abuela? She kind of like abuela.
Kind of like abuela. Like abuela for me is just age. Like I age her voice more.
Yeah.
Tú sabes que
and a little bit weaker. Yeah.
Cuando tú sales afuera sin un suéter. So it's the same kind of like rough Cuban accent, but I age abuela's voice, whereas Lupe has no rough.
Yeah.
In the new show, though, I am a recurring on four characters. One of them doesn't really talk, but one of them is just basically abuela. Like it's just because you know how it is sometimes. Like you book one role, and then the next day they're like, "Can you do this character?" And then you have to come up with a voice on the spot.
Yeah. So Diego does that to me all the time. They just book me and I get there and I'm like, so what were you thinking for this? And they're like, well, she's kind of like Sofia Vergara. And actually that was I voiced an ant in one of the episodes, a queen ant. And they wanted
that was one of my favorites. That was one of my favorites.
It's also with like freaking Jorge Gutierrez, who's amazing.
Yes.
But they wanted Sofia Vergara and I was like, I kind of imagine her like a drag queen. Is that okay? And they're like, well, what does she sound like? And I think she sounds something like this, But I don't know. She was large, and we have to pull it out of our ass basically when we're making stuff up.
It's terrifying sometimes. Yeah. I'm like, oh, blah.
Yeah.
What do I do? It's been a really fun journey, honestly. Like, claro, I love acting as myself on camera, pero I think that's such a great and wonderful career path is voice acting.
Dude, I've often thought, like, there was a time when I was just doing conventions, traveling the world with that, and then here and there booking a few voiceover gigs, and I didn't have on-camera agents, so I wasn't getting any auditions, which I obviously wanted to film and TV, but I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I get to meet fans of the video games. I travel, which I love to do, and I'm doing voice work. Like, this is a fulfilling life because voice work is really fun. You're in the booth with people who are rooting for you. The funny Maisie Grove mentions the crazy chicken. There's also an episode. I got to work with Fred Tatashore, who is insanely talented. If you ever played Soldier 76, he's the voice of that guy in Overwatch, and he was like this like farmer in the episode of Victor and Valentino, and they had I was voicing 3 animals, and one was a dumb chicken. And so I kind of went in thinking the chicken gonna talk like this. And they're like, nah, I don't like that. And so then I'm like, what if she's dumb? And I gave them all these versions. And at one point I'm like, what if she's on coke and she just talks like that the whole time?
Lost her mind there, and you're
like, so obviously the kids watching Victor and Valentino don't think that this chicken is on coke, but in my brain, that's how I made it work, and they loved it. So it was
cocaine.
Guys, don't repeat this to 12-year-olds, y'all who are here, but that's in my brain. And I didn't have to say that out loud. Like, she just loved the cast, the director loved it, but I was just like, okay, we make it work for whatever works.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah, man, it is. It really, and I think it expands us because we have to use our imagination,
Yeah, what's great is that you can voice characters that you don't look like at all.
Yeah.
What's
one of the voices that you want to use in an animation you produce? Like, is there a particular, like, I love my kid voice because I just want to voice a 6-year-old fucking kid.
Yes, I'm same. I want to be able to, because a lot of people, even my agency was surprised when I could realistically sound like a kid because I have such a deep voice.
Yeah.
So I want to be able, because obviously Lupe is great, but I feel like it's silly, right? But I worry that it's not as impressive because she sounds very much like me. Whoop-de-doo. I want to be able to showcase my range more. So do my little kid voice, but also I really want, the animated series that I'm working on in hopes of pitching it is based on my characters, and Laritza is the center of it. I just really want to hear the Miami accent so badly as like a main character in an animated series. So like, like talk like this is how I talk. Like I'm like, and then have other characters in the show who also have like Miami Caribbean accents. Obviously Laritza is like una exagerada, so her accent's next level. Yeah. But she's also such a
teen that's so like, oh my God. Yeah.
It's like Valley, but for Miami, I guess, if I were to describe it. And it's interesting because even when I voiced Lupe, I was like, oh my God, I can't really recall the time that I ever heard a Cuban accent in an animated show.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
A Cuban Miami accent, the specific
Miami accent.
Specifics.
It felt really nice, and I want to do more of that because what's hard for me is that I'm not good. I may have to take classes, claro, but I'm not good at neutralizing my Spanish. Nor can I can't really do a lot of like Latino dialects.
But that's okay, dude. You don't have to.
Well, sometimes they ask for it. They're like, you need to neutralize or you need to sound Mexican. And I'm like, listen, I'm Caribbean, And again, I know there's not a lot of us, but at the same time, like sometimes I definitely, if I get an audition that's meant for like a Black person or an Asian
or Native American,
I turn it down immediately.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's just wrong. But then second of all, imagine going to Comic-Con and you, a white Latina, is voicing a Black character.
Yeah.
And all these little Black kids are looking forward to seeing their favorite Black character in person, and it's a white person voicing. It's like that's terrible. But thankfully that's not happening as much anymore. Like there's a couple instances where I get an audition and I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable doing this. Pero if it's an audition that's like Latino, that's just generic Latino, I give them my Caribbean flair because that's what teachers tell me to do. They're like, that's what's going to make you stand out.
Make it unique.
We need more dialects from different Latin American cultures in video games and in animation. Why does everything have to be neutral?
I know.
Or Mexican, if you're not actually Mexican. So I don't know. That's all. That's my big gripe.
I think it's a mix. Like, I understand when they're trying to sell something on the radio to a Mexican population because all of LA is Mexican. So I get that you need to specify that. Sometimes I also think, like Joanna was saying in one of your episodes, the more specific we get with our content, the more people are going to relate rather than this like pan-Hispanic content that then people go, oh, that's kind of watered down Honduran, kind of watered down Guatemalan, instead of like, I am specifically selling you this and it's Venezuelan. I am selling you Cuban, not selling, but like your story is Cuban, my story is Colombian. Why am I going to try and just neutralize it,
But that happens a lot in our industry. They try to neutralize us because they're afraid that no one's going to watch our specific, authentic stories.
Yeah.
And they are so wrong about that because then these shows don't even make it to season 2.
I know.
They just don't survive because who is this? What is this?
What is this generalized? Yeah.
It's too watered down. It's.
Listen, if anything, if I were you, I wouldn't worry about working on all your Latino dialects. Sure, maybe learn how to neutralize some Spanish because it sells product. Besides that, though, man, what you bring to the table is like a very specific and awesome thing. When we do a little bit of everything, sometimes it just doesn't land, right? So, man, you're in your lane doing some amazing stuff that I know so many people look up to you and go, oh man, I should really be producing my own stuff. Oh man, I should really do my own videos. But they just don't, and they don't have the talent to write it or the drive to just put it together, edit it, and put it out, man. Putting out content constantly is insane, and you're a master at that. That I really, really admire that you're like always putting stuff out. Even when I'm exhausted, I go, how does she do it? I don't know.
I don't know how I do it. I mean, it's tough. I think it's also tied to like anxiety and ADHD because like right now, since I'm moving, I haven't been putting up as many videos. And
do you feel a difference though? Do you feel a difference in how people engage, or it's just like, it's okay, man, Jenny took a week off. What? You deserve that.
It's, well, as I mentioned earlier, like, so I'm on every platform except like Twitch, right? So all of my videos usually go on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok, little repurposed stuff. And then sometimes Twitter. Each audience is almost entirely different because I've had people look at like analytics and they're like, your Instagram audience is almost entirely different from your Facebook audience. And so there's not much crossover. So you got to make each platform happy. For instance, my YouTube audience tends to suffer the most because you can't just post repurposed stuff on YouTube. Mm-hmm. It's like whenever you get a new video is when you get a new video versus Instagram, you can repurpose stuff, there's stories, blah, blah, blah. So my audience is fairly entertained because again, you keep getting new people in that have never seen certain videos of yours. So yeah. And then también Facebook, you can repost old stuff, but I'm going to be honest, these social media platforms are doing creators a pretty terrible disservice because when they see that you don't post even for a week, you get punished.
So the algorithms are killing me, man.
But you're not alone. You are not alone. It's really sad. I mean, I'm grateful that I have a really loyal audience. So I found out that like even on my Facebook, a lot of people tend to come back and just watch old stuff. Like that's how loyal they are.
Yeah.
So my issue is not so much my current audience. It's growing and finding new audiences. So again, I have connections with like Facebook and Instagram and toda esta gente. And you know how Instagram right now is really pushing reels?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I had a feeling about this and it was actually just confirmed to me by someone at Instagram. It's really depressing. So I was always stuck around a certain number and then I kind of got like a mini boost and then I've been stuck there for months. But that boost came because 2 of my reels, like weeks apart, were featured on Instagram. When they're featured, a bunch of people start rolling in. Now, then I'm like, how come no other reels of mine have gotten featured since? The 2 reels that got featured were totally in English.
That's so stupid though, because your audience is multilingual. So I don't understand why they would just limit that.
Well, I mean, it was at first it was a suspicion, and now it's actually been confirmed by Instagram that they are not featuring bilingual or reels that are in another language. And then it's more than that. Then it's, you have to post a reel almost every day, at least one IGTV video every week. You need to also post photos. You need to also make use of every single little toy that they give you on Instagram stories. So let's say you do 20 Instagram stories. It doesn't really count unless you're using all their little features like polls, the slider, questions.
Oh my God.
Stickers. Yes. This isn't me talking out of my butt. This is actual facts from Instagram. So it's like a reward system. So they give you like a little treat every time you do all these things as if you do not have a life. So that's why I'm stuck at the same number. I've been stuck at the same number.
And that's why like Instagrammers who just live off of Instagramming or TikTokers, their life is that, right? Like here I am learning 3 auditions, plus a recording, plus a sound check for this, trying to sign some Funkos. So if y'all want that, go to my Instagram and check it out. But like, I'm not paying attention to all the little widgets and gadgets and gadgets of shit and reels. Yeah. No, I haven't posted a lot of reels, but I know that they've started reels to compete against TikTok.
That's all they care about. That's the only way to grow right now. That is literally the only way to grow right now is reels.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, what's the best thing about being Latin American? That was a great question by Meow Indeed. What's your favorite Cuban food?
What is the question?
What's your favorite Cuban? No, it's what's the best thing about being Latin American? Or the best thing about Latin American culture?
Oh man, that's always so tough. I think it's a mixture of just, there's a lot of pride in our culture, and I think we exude that in our music and our food and just like our gatherings. I think we're pretty loving people. We're very touchy, which is like, again, the worst thing this pandemic. It's like being like, oh, don't touch me. But we're just very huggy and lovey and like everyone's family. I think that's what I really love about our culture. There's like this warmth. Yeah. To, obviously not everyone is, claro.
Yeah.
Not everything is like, but there's this like feeling of you're automatically family kind of thing. So even with my audience, I call them like my long lost primos and primas, which is funny because some of them are actually.
I need to record it.
Because they're, they want you to be more financially stable and just be a lawyer or something. But no, like across the board, my entire family was always extremely supportive of what I do.
That's amazing. Where can my followers find you? Are they all Janizzles?
That's the problem, right? When you have been on the internet for far too long and are hella old, like all my handles are mismatched and you can't do anything about it once you get like checkmarked. But if you type Jenny Lorenzo, you should be able to find me across all social platforms. And then I have my website, jennylorenzo.com. So that's like
Guys, so check out Jenny with all her fun videos. Monte 3, we're not complaining about the algorithm, but it's, you're trying to get your work shown, and then all these platforms have these little tricks for you to get seen or not seen when you already have a following that cares about your work, but they're just not promoting your work. So as performers who want to show our work to the people who care about it, it's getting trickier and trickier to get it seen. So, I think we're all in this together trying to figure out what the best way to do it is. Because sometimes you get stuck and you go, what's happening? Like, this should get more traction. But, the internet, there's no science to it.
Yeah, it could be daunting because it's a mental health issue. Like, again, I suffer from an anxiety disorder. I have premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which only adds to the anxiety. I have ADHD, which makes it really hard for me to focus and stay organized. And when you have to work on multiple platforms and make sure that you're doing everything right while also balancing your personal life. And again, I have Crohn's disease, I have a chronic illness. So it's not that it is very hard when social media platforms make it difficult for creators to thrive, because there's a lot of really unrealistic expectations, and everyone's life is different, and they have their own limitations, whether it's from a mental health standpoint, an emotional standpoint, physical standpoint, and even just stuff that's going on. I mean, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, people are dying, suffering, and it is hard when those on the outside who aren't in our shoes understand how much pressure there is it's constant juggling. It's constant juggling. And then it's not, and you're in the same boat, Carolina, where, I'm on 2 animated shows. I do a hosting job right now with Disney Plus on their channel. I have this podcast with Joanna. I'm married. I have a dog. So it's like, listen, having a dog is a responsibility. I know I don't have a kid. Kudos to the parents out there. Much respect. But I just want people to understand that content creators don't always have it easy. We could be massively depressed and still be putting out content because, for me at least, it's not just my living. To me, it feels like my duty. I want to make people happy. I want to bring entertainment to people. It's what I've done since I was a kid.
And it's what you live off of.
It's what I live off of. And it's also a way for me to represent my community and keep the memory of my grandparents around. So just know that behind every video you see online, there is a human being, that we have emotions. We have our many, many, many issues that we are also tackling while still bringing out content and doing the best that we can with what we've got. So it can just become really, really frustrating and really exhausting, but I still love it. I do it for my audience. These social media platforms may not necessarily be on our side, but I do it for the people at the end of the day. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're going over, but great question about how you managed to fit all the plot twists at the end of your Thanksgiving video, and also you shooting all your characters like that. That's just insanity. How do you make that happen in 2 minutes? Because Jenny has to go.
I have a lot to be thankful for, because if it wasn't for my producing partner, Kevin Bosch, who's Venezuelan Colombian from Miami, he moved out here about 3 years ago, and ever since we've been working together, and then obviously right now it's just me and him, literally just me and him. He films all my stuff, runs sound, does the lighting, and also co-directs me, helps me produce, helps me write, and then I edit all the videos on my own, and then I handle most social.
Holy shit, man.
So before the pandemic, it was usually just me, him, and a DP. So it was still always a small team, but because of COVID, we're being extra careful. But if it wasn't for Kevin, it would be really difficult for me to do that Thanksgiving sketch, because again, I don't know if it's my ADHD, but I have no sense of direction. It's really hard for me to imagine a table full of my like 7 characters and know, okay, I'm sitting here, this character's here, and then here's my eye line, and that's all thanks to him.
Do you have a little mannequin sitting in different places so you can look at them? No. A broom with a tape on it?
Sometimes tape, you know, and it ends up editing pretty well together. I'm pretty proud of it.
It looks really amazing. It looks really amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Guys, definitely please check out Jenny Lorenzo's work on all the socials. I follow her on YouTube and Insta and Twitter and TikTok. Hello. And Hyphenated, the podcast, is also on, I listen to it on iTunes, but I'm sure it's on Spotify as well. You guys are so rad. Thank you for being on. This was inspiring. Latinos got to stick together and help each other out. And also remembering that there are people behind all of our channels. We post the stuff and we feel the feelings. So your comments, get to us, and we're all humans who feel stuff. So remembering that trolling people is shitty, and we try and put our best foot forward. So we hope the best from you too. Dude, thank you so much for being on, Jenny.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Keep booming and bumping, guys. That's my sign off because my both characters boom and boop. Oh.